Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Chris Weidenbar, and joining us from the Royal Australian Air Force is Squadron Leader Stacey Davids. This evening, we are honoured to acknowledge the delegation representing the Australian Defence College who are in attendance this evening. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of the RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors and by students on behalf of the following schools. From New South Wales, Patterson Public School. From Queensland, Goondiwindi State School. And from the Northern Territory, Araluen Christian College, Alice Springs. I now ask all who are able to please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Thank you. Students, you may be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's first World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway lands. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Claude Dewsnap. Claude Dewsnap was born in 1892 in Malden, Victoria, the youngest of 9 children born to John and Mary Dewsnap. He attended a local state school and while there spent 7 years serving in a cadets unit. After school, he worked as a clerk in the lands department and lived in the Melbourne suburb of Brighton. He was a popular member of the Melbourne Swimming Club and was engaged to Gladys Turner. Around March 1915, Dewsnap attempted to sign up and fight in the war, but was rejected on dental grounds. On the 7th of July, he attempted to enlist again, and this time was accepted. He began training with the reinforcements of the 24th Infantry Battalion, one of 4 Dewsnap brothers, to serve for Australia in the First World War. In November 1915, Dewsnap sailed from Melbourne for overseas service. He was too late to serve on Gallipoli, but was in Egypt for a period known as the doubling of the AIF, during which Australian units were reorganized and expanded in preparation for war on the Western Front. He transferred to the 8th Battalion, which formed part of the 2nd Brigade of the 1st Australian Division. In March 1916, Dewsnap sailed from Egypt for France. He was hospitalized in June with dental problems, rejoining his unit in late July as they were taking part in the heavy fighting at Pozières near the Somme River. On the 18th of August 1916, Dewsnap and the 8th Battalion participated in an attack on the German lines near Pozières. After an artillery bombardment of the German trenches, the troops jumped out of their trenches and into no man's land. As they attacked, the men came under heavy machine gun fire that was so heavy that they were forced to withdraw and reform before making a renewed attack. During this action, Dewsnap received a gunshot wound to the back of his left knee. He was sent to hospital in England for treatment and recovery and did not rejoin his unit for 9 months when they were fighting in the Ypres sector of Belgium. In August 1917, Dewsnap received the sad news that his oldest brother John, who had been reported as being missing in action since the fighting at Fromelles in July 1916, had officially been declared as being killed in action. The following month, on the 20th of September, Claude Dewsnap was once again wounded in action. This time he received a bullet wound to the scalp during heavy fighting at Menin Road in Belgium. Australian forces suffered 5,000 casualties in this battle. After a brief period in hospital, Dewsnap returned to his unit, which was resting behind the lines near Ypres. On the 26th of October 1917, the 8th Battalion was in the front-line trenches near Westhurk in Belgium when it came under an intense German high-explosive and shrapnel artillery barrage that lasted throughout the day and night. During the attack, Dewsnap was struck in the head by a piece of shell that fractured his skull. Knocked unconscious, he was taken for medical treatment. 2 days later, on the 28th of October, he died of his wounds at the number 10 casualty clearing station. He was 25 years old. His family had lost 2 brothers in the war. Today, his remains lie buried in the Lissenhurk military cemetery in Belgium, where over 10,000 soldiers of the First World War now lie. His gravestone reads, "So deeply mourned, so sadly missed." One of his fellow soldiers later described him as always pleasant and popular with the boys. And his family wrote to local newspapers about how much they missed their darling boy. Private Claude Dewsnap's name is listed on the Roll of Honor on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Claude Dewsnap, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening.